The trouble started at 10:14 on a Tuesday morning, which I know because I had just looked at the office clock and decided that any human being who came to Nero Wolfe's front door before lunch deserved whatever happened to him. In that house, lunch was not a meal. It was a constitutional principle. Breakfast could be discussed, dinner revered, and beer defended. But lunch was sacred. So when the bell rang, sharp and impatient, while Wolfe was in the office finishing a consultation with a catalogue of seed suppliers, and Fritz was already building a sauce that smelled like a diplomatic incident, I went to the hall with ill will in my heart and one finger ready for the latch. The man outside was too well dressed for a collector and too pale for a salesman. He was around 40, narrow in the face, and with dark hair brushed so carefully it looked pasted on, and gloves in October, which is always a bad sign unless you are an undertaker or a duchess. He gave me a card before I asked for his name, as if he had rehearsed the gesture. It said, Lyle B. Gerin, Executive Secretary, Vestal Club. "I must see Nero Wolfe at once," he said. "That puts you in a large and tiresome fraternity." "It concerns a murder." I have heard that line in enough variations to know that half the time it means blackmail, adultery, embezzlement, or nerves. Still, it had one merit. It got him into the office. Wolfe was behind his desk, all 7 parts of him arranged in the chair with that immovable completeness that made furniture seem temporary and him permanent. His eyes were half closed, which with Wolfe can mean boredom, concentration, contempt, as were a mild grievance against God. Gerin stopped 2 strides inside, looked at him, and swallowed. Wolfe said, "Sit down. Archie, the windows." That meant the man would stay at least 3 minutes. I shut the street noise out, took my desk, and looked him over again. His gloves were still on. His right thumb worried the seam of the left one. Gerin sat and said, "Mr. Wolfe, I came because Inspector Kramer would make noise, and the newspapers would make more, and I need the truth before either of them gets to work." Wolfe opened his eyes another fraction. "Truth is often tardy. Noise is punctual. Proceed." "There was a dinner last night at the Vestal Club. Private, 12 guests. After dinner, at approximately 11, one of them was found dead in the reading room. His name was Benno Vale." "Cause of death?" I asked. Gerin glanced at me. I decided I counted and answered. "A knife wound, 1 thrust to the chest." Wolfe grunted. "And the door?" Gerin blinked. "The door, sir." "You announced a murder. Your face announced a complication. I dislike waiting." The reading room door was locked from the inside. That improved the air in the office by a measurable degree. Locked room items were not Wolfe's favorite recreation, but they offended his sense of order in a way that could wake his appetite. I saw the small movement at the corner of his mouth that meant he had filed the matter under possibly worth attention. Gerin took off his gloves then, finger by finger. His hands were not steady. "There is more. Mr. Vale had come to the club because of a dispute involving a bequest left by our founder. He had threatened, in my hearing, to expose conduct that would disgrace several people. The club is old, influential, and not eager for scandal. This morning, before the police were called in full force, I was instructed by our president to consult private counsel." "Counsel?" I said. "You came to a detective." He turned to me. "No, I came to a man who might understand why a door that could only be locked from inside was found locked after the person inside had been murdered." Wolfe's lips moved. "That sentence is incompetent, but the implication is acceptable. Who found the body?" "A steward named Paul Vetch. He says he knocked, got no answer. Tried the knob, found it locked, then used the master key." "And afterward?" Wolfe asked. "The key was in the inside lock." I leaned back. "Convenient." "Yes," Gerin said, looking at me too quickly. That is why I'm here." Wolfe closed his eyes. "No. You're here because either you suspect someone the police must not examine too soon, or you fear they will examine you? Jerrin's jaw tightened. I had an argument with Vale. Of course you did, Wolfe said. Everyone worth murdering has the decency to quarrel with several people first. Who else? Jerrin named 4 without notes, which told me he had been carrying the list in his head all morning and perhaps all night. Clotilde Anselm, widow of a financier and chief donor to the club library. Dr. Morris Eber, historian and trustee of the founder's papers. Adrian Kelm, a lawyer representing an adverse claim on the bequest, and Naomi Vale, the dead man's estranged sister, who had appeared uninvited just before dinner. That was a respectable circle already, and from Jerrin's tone each name had burrs on it. Wolfe heard them too. "What do you want from me?" he asked. "The truth before the story hardens," Jerrin said. "And discretion?" Wolfe opened his eyes and looked at him full. "Discretion is expensive. Truth is more so." Jerrin reached into his coat and laid an envelope on the desk. Wolfe didn't touch it. I did, checked the contents, and found enough bills to keep Fritz in cream and quail for a week. Wolfe said, "Archie will go with you to this club. He will look, listen, and annoy the appropriate persons. I will decide later whether to continue." That was Wolfe all over. He had taken the case, but he preferred to pretend the decision was still ripening. Jerrin stood, relieved too fast to be innocent, and that was when the front bell rang again. This time it was not impatient. It was official. Even before I crossed the hall, I knew from the weight of it that murder had arrived at the brownstone in person. I opened the door and met Inspector Kramer in a mood that suggested the city had personally insulted him before breakfast. He pushed past me without waiting for an invitation, which is one of the privileges he allows himself in our house, and hung his hat on the rack as if he owned the peg. "Where is he?" he demanded. "In the office, composing a sonnet to a radish," I said. "You'll like the ending." He didn't. He went straight through, and I followed, which is also one of my privileges. When Kramer entered, Jerrin had half turned toward the hall, and the look that crossed his face could have been relief or alarm. With him, it was hard to tell. He had a face that economized on disclosure, so Kramer stopped 3 steps in and took inventory. Wolfe behind the desk, me at mine, Jerrin standing, envelope on the blotter. He sniffed once like a dog that had found something it wasn't going to enjoy. "Morning, Wolfe," he said. "Archie." "Good morning, Inspector," Wolfe said. "You are punctual. Mr. Jerrin has just finished explaining a murder." Kramer's eyes went to Jerrin and stayed there. "You saved me a trip. Vestal Club, right?" Jerrin inclined his head. "Yes." "Then you can come along now and explain it again, slower," Kramer said. "He will," Wolfe said, "after he has answered a few questions for me." Kramer swung to Wolfe. "No, not after. Now." Wolfe's brows rose a millimeter. "Inspector, your grammar is as blunt as your intentions. You may have Mr. Jerrin in a moment. Then I require 3 minutes." Kramer made a sound that would have frightened a smaller man. It didn't move Wolfe an inch. Jerrin looked from one to the other and decided that Wolfe was less likely to shout. "3 minutes," he said. Kramer grunted and leaned against the wall by the bookcase, arms folded. He watched as if he expected Wolfe to try a trick with the furniture. Wolfe said, "Mr. Jerrin, the reading room door. Describe the lock." "A mortise lock, standard. Key on both sides." "Was the inside key removable?" "Yes." "And was it in the lock when the steward opened the door?" "Yes." "Did the steward touch it before anyone else entered?" Jerrin hesitated. "He says he did not. He used his own key, opened the door, saw Mr. Vale on the floor, and went for help." "Leaving the door open?" "Yes." Wolfe nodded once. "The window?" "There is one window. It was closed and latched." "Any other entrance?" "No." "Good," Wolfe said. "Archie will examine the lock, the window, and the steward's account. You will make yourself available, and you will not instruct anyone at the club to be clever. Cleverness is a form of lying, and I charge extra for it." Jerin said, "I understand." Kramer pushed off the wall. "That's enough. Jerin, come on." Jerin reached for his gloves again, then seemed to remember he had taken them off. He left them on Wolfe's desk, which I noticed. People who forget their gloves are either rattled or pretending to be. I couldn't decide which he was, and I filed it. Kramer herded him out. At the door he turned back. "Wolfe, if you're in this, you'll stay in it the way you always do. No interference." "I never interfere," Wolfe said. I observe and conclude." "Yeah," Kramer said, "and I get the bill." He went out with Jerin. I closed the door and went back to the office. Wolfe was looking at the envelope as if it had offended him. "Well?" I said. "Well, what?" "You took it." "I accepted a retainer," he said. "I have not yet decided to earn it." "Then I'll go earn a look," I said. "The Vestal Club is on my list of places that don't want me." "Many places don't want you," Wolfe said. "It is one of your more useful qualities." He picked up Jerin's gloves with 2 fingers and held them as if they might speak. "These are new." "People buy new gloves," I said. "Not on a Tuesday morning after a murder, unless they intend to be seen wearing them," he said, "or to be seen removing them." "You think he's performing?" "I think he is arranging impressions," Wolfe said. Find out for whom." I went to the hall for my coat. Fritz came from the kitchen with a look that said I was interfering with something important involving butter. "You're going out?" he said. "Temporarily," I told him. "Guard the source with your life." "I always do," he said, and went back to it. Outside, the city had decided to be ordinary, which is its most suspicious condition. I got a cab and gave the address. The Vestal Club sat on a block that believed in itself, with a facade that had seen better centuries and a doorman who had seen better men. He looked at me, took in my hat and my expression, and decided I might be tolerable. "Mr. Goodwin," I said, "Mr. Jerin is expecting me." He hesitated long enough to show he resented the fact, then let me in. The lobby smelled of leather and old arguments. Jerin was waiting, without his gloves, and with Kramer a few steps behind him like a shadow that had learned to swear. "Goodwin," Kramer said, "don't touch anything." "I never do," I said. "I just look at it until it confesses." Jerin led the way down a corridor that kept its secrets by being tasteful. The reading room was at the end. The door was closed. Kramer opened it with a key from his pocket and stood aside. "Go on," he said. "Look." I did. The room was quiet, lined with books that had been read by men who liked to be seen reading. A table in the center, 2 chairs, a rug that had opinions, and on the floor, chalk marked the place where Benno Vale had ended up after someone had decided to settle an argument with steel. I went to the door first. The lock was as Jerin had described. I tried the knob. It turned easily. Then I put my face close and looked at the keyhole. There were fresh scratches around it, faint but not shy. "Who used the master key?" I asked. "The steward," Jerin said. "Where is he?" "Downstairs." "Good," I said. "We'll go see him. But first, this door. When it was opened, the key inside stayed in place?" "Yes." "And nobody thought to ask how a man gets stabbed, drops dead, and then locks his own door behind him?" Kramer said. "That's what I'm asking you." I looked at the scratches again. They weren't from ordinary use. They were from something that had missed once or twice before finding the slot. "Inspector," I said, "either your steward has nervous hands, or somebody tried to put a key into that lock from the outside and wasn't very good at it." Kramer's head came up. Jerin didn't move at all, which was almost worse. "From the outside?" Kramer said. "Maybe," I said. "Or maybe somebody wanted it to look that way." I straightened and smiled at him, which he hates. Let's go meet the man with the key. We found the steward in a service room that smelled faintly of polish and resentment. Paul Vetch was a narrow man with a careful posture, as if he had spent years learning how to take up as little space as possible without disappearing. He stood when we entered, eyes flicking from Gerrin to Kramer and then to me, measuring the order of danger. "This is Mr. Goodwin," Gerrin said. "He will ask questions." "I've already answered questions," Vetch said. "Then you will enjoy the repetition," I told him. "It improves the memory." Kramer planted himself by the door. "Start from the beginning," he said, "and don't get clever." Vetch clasped his hands. "I was on duty in the corridor outside the reading room. At approximately 11, I went to inform Mr. Vale that his sister was asking for him. I knocked. There was no answer. I knocked again, louder. Still no answer. I tried the knob. It was locked. I went to the office, obtained the master key, returned, and opened the door. Mr. Vale was on the floor. I saw blood. I went for help." "Who did you see first?" I asked. "Mr. Gerrin." Gerrin nodded once as if confirming a receipt. "And when you opened the door," I said, "the key on the inside was in the lock?" "Yes." "You didn't touch it?" "No." "You're sure?" "I'm certain." "Good," I said. "Let's talk about the master key. Show it to me." He produced it from a small ring. It was worn, the edges softened by years of use. I took it and turned it in my fingers. "You had no trouble using it?" I asked. "No." "No fumbling, no missing the slot?" "No." "Because there are scratches around the keyhole on the outside," I said. "Fresh ones. Someone tried to get a key in there and didn't manage it on the first try." Vetch's eyes widened a fraction. I did not notice. "That's all right," I said. "You were busy discovering a corpse." Kramer said, "You saying he did it?" "I'm saying he had a key and a door and an opportunity to explain both," I said. "I'm also saying that if he's telling the truth, somebody else had a key or something like it." Gerrin spoke then, too quickly. "There are only 2 master keys. One with the steward on duty, one in the office safe." "And last night?" I asked. "The second key remained in the safe." "Who has access to the safe?" "Myself and the president, Mrs. Anselm." "Clotilde Anselm," I said. "The donor with opinions." Gerrin's mouth tightened. "She is a patron." "Sure," I said. "So is gravity." I handed the key back to Vetch. "Walk me through it again. You knock, no answer, you go for the key. How long are you gone?" 2 minutes, perhaps 3. "And in that time anyone could have gone in or out of that room." "The corridor's not busy," he said. "I saw no one." "That wasn't my question," I said. "Could they have?" He hesitated. "Yes." "Good," I said. "We're making progress." Kramer grunted. "What about the window?" "Closed and latched," Vetch said. I checked. "You checked after you opened the door?" "Yes." "And before anyone else came in?" "Yes." "Who came in next?" I asked. "Mr. Gerrin, then Dr. Eber, then Mrs. Anselm." "Where was the sister?" I said. "In the lounge," Gerrin said. "She had just arrived." "Convenient," I said again. Gerrin looked at me sharply. "You seem to find many things convenient." "That's because I don't believe in coincidence," I said. "It offends me." I stepped closer to Vetch. "When you opened the door, did it stick?" "No." "No resistance at all?" "No." "Then the lock wasn't engaged against pressure," I said. "Nobody was holding the door from inside." Kramer's eyes narrowed. "Meaning?" "Meaning the door was locked, but not because someone leaned on it after being stabbed," I said. "Which leaves us with a dead man, a locked door, a key on the inside, and scratches on the outside that suggest somebody tried to get in with a key that didn't fit or a hand that didn't cooperate." Vetch said, "I told you everything I know." "I believe you told us everything you're comfortable knowing," I said. "So that's different." Kramer pushed away from the door. "All right, enough. Goodwin, you've had your look. Now stay out of my way. I always do, I said. I just happen to be standing where you want to go. He ignored that and turned to Jaren. I want statements from all of them. The widow, the doctor, the lawyer, the sister. No one leaves. Jaren nodded. Of course, I echoed. And I want to talk to them too. Kramer snorted. You want a lot of things. Mostly answers, I said. They're going around. Jaren hesitated, then said, You may speak with them, briefly. Brief is my middle name, I said. That is not true, Kramer said. It is today, I told him. We left Vetch to his Polish and went back up the corridor. Jaren led me toward a sitting room where the suspects were gathered, and while Kramer peeled off to bark orders at a uniform who looked like he regretted his career choices. As we walked, I leaned closer to Jaren. You forgot your gloves, I said. He blinked. What? At Wolfe's, I said. You left them on his desk. He stopped just for a step, then resumed. I was distracted. Sure, I said. Murder will do that. But it wasn't the distraction that interested me. It was the choice. New gloves, carefully worn, carefully removed, and then forgotten at just the right moment to be noticed later. Wolfe would notice. He always did. We reached the sitting room. Voices inside, low and tense. Jaren paused with his hand on the knob. Mr. Goodwin, he said, this is a delicate matter. All the best ones are, I said. He opened the door. Inside, 4 people turned to look at me, and if guilt has a smell, the room had it in layers. They had arranged themselves as if the furniture had opinions about rank. Mrs. Clotilde Anselm occupied the largest chair, upright and composed, a woman who had made a habit of being deferred to and saw no reason to break it. Dr. Morris Eber stood by the mantel with one hand resting on it, his fingers tapping a quiet rhythm that suggested he counted things even when there was nothing to count. Adrian Kelm leaned against the window, the light at his back, which is where a lawyer puts it when he prefers not to be read too easily. Naomi Vale sat apart from them, near the end of a narrow table, her hands folded tight enough to turn the knuckles pale, her eyes moving from face to face as if measuring how much each of them had taken from her and how much she might take back. Jaren stepped in first. Mr. Goodwin will ask a few questions, he said. Nobody said they would answer them. That was all right. I'd met that silence before. I took a chair that gave me a view of all of them and settled in. Let's begin with something simple, I said. Who last saw Benno Vale alive? Eber spoke first. I did. We spoke briefly in the corridor. He said he intended to consult the founder's papers again. Time? I asked. Shortly before 11. Kelm's voice came in smooth. I saw him enter the reading room. I was on my way out. Out where? I asked. Home. You didn't stay for the rest of the evening? I had no reason to. That's not an answer, I said. It's a preference. His mouth tightened. I had concluded my business. With the bequest, I said. Yes. Successfully? That depends on your definition. Mine is simple, I said. Archie, did you get what you wanted? No, he said. That helps. I said, unsuccessful men sometimes do interesting things. Mrs. Anselm spoke then, her voice calm and firm. Mr. Goodwin, I assume you are aware that this club values decorum. I am, I said. I also value it. I just don't let it get in the way of questions. Her gaze held mine for a moment, measuring, then moved on. I saw Mr. Vale earlier in the evening. He was agitated. He made several remarks that I found unacceptable. About the bequest? I asked. Yes. And about you? I said. She did not answer that. She didn't have to. I turned to Naomi Vale. You arrived late, I said. Yes. Why? I was not invited, she said. I came anyway. To see your brother? Yes. Why? She looked at me directly then. Because he had taken something that was not his. That sounds like a family matter, I said. It is, she said. Or was. And when you arrived? I asked. I asked for him. I was told he was in the reading room. I waited. Then the steward came back and said... She stopped. And said he was dead, I finished for her. Yes. Did you go to the room? No. Why not? I had no wish to see him like that. Or no wish to be seen there, I said. Her eyes flashed. I did not kill my brother. I didn't say you did, I said. I'm asking where you were. In the lounge, with others. Names. She gave me two, both members who had probably already given statements to Kramer and would again. I filed them. I leaned back and let the silence stretch a little. People fill silence if you give them time. Eber obliged. This is absurd, he said. The circumstances are clear. The door was locked. The window was secured. Mr. Vale must have stabbed himself and then locked the door, I said. I've always admired that trick. It shows initiative. Eber flushed. I did not say that. You were thinking it, I said, or something equally tidy. Kellum spoke again. What are you suggesting, Mr. Goodwin? That somebody in this room or someone you know had a way in or a way out that doesn't show up on a polite inspection, I said. Or that the appearance of a locked room is exactly that. An appearance. Mrs. Anselm's fingers moved slightly on the arm of her chair. You are implying deception. I'm implying effort, I said. Deception usually takes some. Gerin shifted by the door. Mr. Goodwin, perhaps nothing, I said. Not yet. I stood and walked to the window where Kellum had been. It was latched, solid. I tested it anyway. No give. I turned back. Dr. Eber, I said, you said Vale wanted the founder's papers. Why? Eber hesitated, then said, there are irregularities in the original bequest. Interpretations differ. Yours and his, I said. And others, he said. Did he threaten to expose those irregularities? He threatened many things, Eber said. Did any of them involve you personally? I asked. Eber's tapping fingers stopped. No. That was too quick. I moved to the door and examined the inside lock again. The key was still there, as Vetch had said, sitting in the slot with an innocence it didn't deserve. Anyone here know how this lock works? I asked. Kellum shrugged. It is a lock. Thank you, I said. I was afraid it might be a piano. I crouched slightly, looking at the alignment. The key was turned fully, the bolt engaged. No trick there, but the scratches outside told a different story, and I could feel Wolfe's voice in the back of my head, asking me to see what wasn't supposed to be seen. I straightened. Mr. Gerin, I said, you said only 2 master keys exist. Yes. One with the steward, one in the safe. Yes. And the safe was not opened last night? No. Who can confirm that? He hesitated. Mrs. Anselm? I turned to her. Can you? Her gaze was steady. Yes. And you checked it this morning? I said. Yes. Before or after you spoke to Mr. Gerin? I asked. After. Good, I said. That means we have a small window of uncertainty. Kramer appeared in the doorway then, filling it with impatience. Goodwin, I've got statements started. You done playing host? Almost, I said. Just one more thing. I looked at each of them in turn. Mr. Vale was stabbed once. Clean, efficient. Whoever did it didn't hesitate. That's not panic. That's decision. So ask yourselves, who here had already decided something before 11 o'clock? No one answered. They didn't need to. The answers were already in the room, sitting in their chairs, tapping on mantels, leaning against windows, folding their hands too tight. I nodded once. All right, I said. That's enough for now. As I stepped past Kramer into the corridor, I knew two things. First, the locked door was a lie. Second, someone had worked very hard to make it look like the truth. And that kind of effort doesn't come cheap. Kramer walked beside me down the corridor, his expression suggesting that if the building had been constructed out of suspects, he would have started tearing down walls. "Well," he said. "Well, what?" I said. "You went in there, you poked them, you annoyed them. Now tell me something useful." "I did tell you something useful," I said. "You just didn't like it." "I don't like a lot of things," he said. "Try me." "The lock is part of a performance," I said. "Somebody wanted that door to be the center of the story. And you think it isn't?" "I think it's a prop," I said. "Important, but not honest." He grunted. "That's not evidence." "No," I said. "It's direction." We reached the main hall. Jeren had drifted ahead, talking quietly to a uniform, his face composed again, the lines smoothed out as if he had practiced it. I watched him for a second, then turned back to Kramer. "Now tell me about the knife," I said. "Kitchen," he said. "Came from downstairs. Nothing fancy." "Anybody see it before it got upstairs?" "No." "Anybody see who took it?" "No." "Then it walked," I said. "It was carried," he snapped. "Sure," I said. "But we don't know by whom." He stopped and faced me. "You got a favorite?" "I've got a list," I said. "You do too. The difference is I'm not in a hurry to pick one." He looked at me hard. "Don't play games with me, Archie." "I don't," I said. "I just don't play your game." That didn't improve his mood, but it didn't have to. He turned away and went back toward the reading room. I let him go. He would circle the same ground until it told him something, or until Wolfe told me to tell him something. I found Jeren near the desk in the lobby, signing something he didn't need to read. When he finished, I stepped up. "Take a walk with me," I said. He hesitated. "I have responsibilities here." "You've got plenty of help," I said, "and I've got questions that don't like crowds." He looked past me, perhaps to see if Kramer was watching. He wasn't. That decided it. Jeren nodded and followed me out to the street. The air was cooler now, and the ordinary city had started to look less innocent. We walked half a block before I spoke. "You arranged that meeting last night," I said. "The dinner?" "Yes." "And you knew Vale was going to make trouble?" "I expected him to speak," he said carefully. "Speak about the bequest," I said. "About irregularities?" "Yes." "And about people," I said. "Specific people." He didn't answer. "You wanted him to say it in front of them," I said. "You wanted the room to hear it." "I wanted the matter resolved," he said. "That's not the same thing," I said. "Resolution is neat. What you set up was messy." He stopped walking. "What are you implying?" "That you built a stage," I said. "And then somebody used it for a different play." His jaw tightened. "I did not kill Benno Vale." "I didn't say you did," I said again. "I'm asking why you made it easier." "I did not make anything easier," he said. "I followed instructions." "From Mrs. Anselm?" I said. He hesitated, just enough. "From the board." "Boards don't give instructions," I said. "People do." He started walking again, faster. "You are overreaching, Mr. Goodwin." "I usually do," I said. "It saves time." We reached the corner. I let the silence sit for a few steps. "Tell me about the founder's papers," I said. "What exactly is in them that scares everyone so much?" "Records," he said. "Correspondence. Drafts of the original bequest. And something that contradicts the current interpretation," I said. "Yes." "And Vale had access to it," I said. "Yes." "And he was going to use it." "Yes." "To force a change," I said. "Or a payment." Jeren didn't answer, which was answer enough. "Who loses if the interpretation changes?" I asked. He sighed as if the air itself had become inconvenient. Several parties. Name one. Mrs. Anselm. Good, I said. That was easy. And others, he added quickly. Dr. Eber, I said. He has a professional interest. And Kelm? He represents a competing claim. So everybody at that table had a reason to want Vale quiet, I said. That's almost impressive. It is not that simple, Jaren said. Some it never is, I said. That's why I get paid. We stopped again. I looked at him. You left your gloves at Wolfe's, I said. He frowned. Yes, I told you. I was distracted. Maybe, I said. Or maybe you wanted Wolfe to notice them. Why would I do that? Because they're new, I said, and because you wore them at exactly the right time to be remembered, and then you took them off at exactly the right time to be noticed, and then you left them behind so Wolfe could think about them. He stared at me. That is absurd. Maybe, I said, but you're the one arranging impressions. His face went still. I came to Mr. Wolfe for help. Sure, I said. And maybe you brought him a puzzle wrapped in gloves. He shook his head. You're imagining things. I do that, I said. It's how I make sense of people. I stepped back. All right, mister. Jaren. Go back inside and keep everything exactly as it is. No cleaning, no rearranging, no helpful ideas. Wolfe hates helpful ideas. I understand, he said. I doubt it, I said. But you'll try. I left him there and took a cab back to the brownstone. When I got in, the house had settled back into its usual rhythm, which is to say, Wolfe had returned from the plant rooms and was in his chair, and Fritz had achieved something with cream that deserved applause. I went to the office. Wolfe looked at me. Well, he said. Well, what? I said. Archie, he said, you are not Inspector Kramer. Do not imitate him. Sorry, I said. The door is a liar. The scratches suggest someone tried to use a key from the outside. The steward says he didn't fumble. There are only 2 master keys, one accounted for, one supposedly untouched. And everyone had a motive, and Jaren is arranging impressions like a man setting a table for guests he doesn't trust. Wolfe closed his eyes. And the gloves? New, I said. Worn deliberately. Removed deliberately. Left deliberately. Pfui, Wolfe said softly. Then we have a man who wishes to be observed being careful. Or careless, I said. There is no difference, Wolfe said. Carelessness is a form of display. He opened his eyes. Archie, call Saul Panzer. That's pressure, I said. That is preparation, Wolfe said. We will require eyes that do not belong to us. I went to the phone. As it rang, I looked at the desk where Jaren's gloves lay, quiet and patient, as if they knew something we didn't. Saul answered on the 3rd ring, which meant he had already decided whether he wanted the job before he picked up. Yeah, it's me, I said. We've got a club that prides itself on discretion and a corpse that doesn't. That narrows it down, he said. Vestal, I told him. We need eyes on 4 people in one building, quiet, patient, and preferably invisible. I can manage invisible, he said. Names. I gave them to him one by one with what I had. Clotilde Anselm, Morris Eber, Adrian Kelm, Naomi Vale, and for good measure, Lyle Jaren. Saul didn't comment, which meant he was already sorting them into habits and patterns. Anything special? He asked. Everything, I said. Who sees whom, who avoids whom, who carries keys they shouldn't, and who buys gloves in the morning. There was a pause. Gloves? New, I said, fresh enough to squeak. I'll find out where they came from, he said. You want today? I want yesterday, I said. Settle for today. Give me a few hours, he said, and hung up. I turned back. Wolfe was watching the gloves on his desk as if they might get up and walk. Saul is engaged, I said. Good, Wolfe said. Sit down. I sat. He closed his eyes again, which meant the talking part was mine until he decided otherwise. Jeren set the table, I said. He wanted Vale to speak in front of them. Vale had something from the founder's papers that could change the bequest. Anselm loses. Uber is implicated professionally. Kelm represents a competing claim. Naomi says her brother took something that wasn't his. And the steward? Wolfe asked without opening his eyes. Careful, I said. Or practiced. He says he didn't fumble the key. The scratches say someone did. Or wished us to believe so, Wolfe said. Right, I said. The lock is part of the show. Wolfe's lips moved. And the key on the inside. Too neat, I said. Left there to close the argument before it starts. He opened his eyes. Archie, what is the simplest explanation for a door locked from the inside? That it was locked from the inside, I said. And if that is impossible, he said. Then it wasn't, I said. Precisely, Wolfe said. We must not be intimidated by carpentry. I grinned. I never am. He picked up one glove and turned it slightly. This is calfskin, expensive but not ostentatious. Purchased recently. Why? To be seen, I said, or to leave something behind. Or to conceal something, Wolfe said. Like what? I asked. He didn't answer. He put the glove down and leaned back. Archie, you will return to the club this afternoon, he said. You will speak again with the steward. You will examine the corridor, the office safe, and the kitchen. You will be tedious. I'm good at that, I said. I know, he said. It is one of your charms. The phone rang. I picked it up. It was Saul. Quick one, he said. Gloves. Bought this morning, 10:30, at a place on Lexington. Paid cash. The clerk remembers him because he was in a hurry and particular about the fit. Before he came to us, I said. Right before, Saul said. He put them on in the store and walked out wearing them. Good, I said. Keep going. I will, he said, and hung up. I relayed it. Wolfe's eyes half closed again. He dressed for us, Wolfe said. He wished to be observed acquiring something new and unnecessary immediately after a murder, which makes him either foolish or careful, I said. Or both, Wolfe said. Foolishness is often an ornament on carefulness. I stood. I'll go back. Go, he said. And Archie. Yeah? Do not allow Inspector Kramer to direct your thoughts, Wolfe said. He has a tendency to prefer conclusions to reasons. I've noticed, I said. I went out again, this time with less ill will and more interest. The Vestal Club admitted me with the same reluctance as before. Inside, the air had thickened. News travels fast when it is not supposed to. I found Vetch in the corridor exactly where he said he had been the night before. He looked at me as if I were a recurrence. Again? He said. Again, I said. Walk me through it one more time. I have told you. I know, I said. Tell me again. This time slower. He did. I watched his hands, his eyes, the way he stood when he said he had knocked, and the way he mimed turning the key. There was no stumble in it, no hesitation. Either he had done it that way, or he had practiced the telling until it fit. Show me the office safe, I said. He hesitated. I will have to ask. Ask, I said. He went. I waited. People passed, glanced, pretended not to. The corridor remembered everything and told nothing. Jeren returned with Vetch. Briefly, he said. Of course, I said. The office was neat in the way of rooms that have never admitted confusion. The safe sat in a corner, respectable and closed. Jeren opened it. Inside, among papers that believed in their own importance, lay the second master key. I looked at it without touching. This hasn't moved? I said. No, Jaren said. You checked it this morning, I said. Yes. Before or after you bought the gloves? I asked. His eyes flickered. Until after. Good, I said. Consistency is a virtue. I closed the safe. Kitchen, I said. Downstairs, the kitchen was busy enough to resent me. I found the knife rack. One space was empty. The others held their companions in a tidy line. Who notices a missing knife? I asked the cook. Everyone, he said. We count. When did you notice? I asked. This morning, he said. After the police came. So not last night, I said. He shook his head. Too busy. Of course, I said. I went back up. The pieces were where I had left them, which was the trouble. They fit too easily if you didn't look at them, and not at all if you did. At the door to the reading room, I stopped and looked again at the scratches. They were shallow, hesitant, made by someone who either didn't know the key or wanted it to look that way, and I reached out and touched them lightly. A performance, Wolfe had said. Carefulness displayed as carelessness, a man who buys gloves to be seen buying them, a door that locks itself after a murder because someone wants it to. I straightened. Somewhere in the building, a decision had been made before 11 o'clock, and everything since had been arranged to make that decision look inevitable. I went back to the hall, already knowing that when I reported to Wolfe, he would not ask me what I had seen. He would ask me what had been shown to me, and why. When I got back to the brownstone, Wolfe hadn't moved, which is to say the world had adjusted itself around him as usual. The gloves were still on the desk, placed with the kind of casual precision that meant he had not stopped thinking about them for a second. Well, he said. Well, what? I said, because I have a loyalty to tradition. He gave me a look that suggested tradition had limits. Archie. All right, I said, sitting. The safe key is where it should be. Jaren says he checked it this morning after buying the gloves. The steward is either telling the truth perfectly or lying with practice. The kitchen knife went missing sometime last night, unnoticed, and the scratches on the lock still say someone either fumbled with a key or wanted it to look that way. And your impression? Wolfe asked. That everything is arranged, I said. Not just the lock. The meeting, the guests, the timing. Jaren built a stage, but he didn't write the last act. Wolfe closed his eyes. No, he said softly. He did not. I leaned back. Saul should have more soon. As if on cue, the phone rang. I picked it up. Saul again. Got something, he said. Kelm left the club around 11, like he said. But he didn't go home. He went 3 blocks, made a call from a public booth, stayed there 5 minutes, then took a cab. To where? Didn't catch the destination, but I've got the driver's number. Working on it. Good, I said. What about Eber? Still digging, Saul said. Anselm hasn't moved. Vale's sister went to a hotel, hasn't come out. And Jaren? A pause. Careful, Saul said. He's staying inside lines. Too much. Keep watching, I said. I hung up and relayed it. Wolfe's eyes opened. Kelm makes a call immediately after the time of death, Wolfe said. Interesting. And Jaren remains within the boundaries he himself has drawn. He's controlling the picture, I said. Attempting to, Wolfe corrected. But control is never complete. At it leaks. Through scratches on locks, I said. And gloves, Wolfe said. He picked one up again. Archie, why does a man who wishes to be observed as careful also arrange to appear careless? To suggest honesty, I said. Careless people look like they have nothing to hide. Indeed, Wolfe said. And if he wishes us to think that he wishes to be thought careless, what then? That he's 2 steps ahead, I said. Or believes he is, Wolfe said. He leaned forward slightly, which in Wolfe is the equivalent of pacing. The lock, Archie, it is the pivot, not because it is mysterious, but because it is emphasized. Therefore, it is false in emphasis. You think the solution is simple, I said. I think the complication is deliberate, he said, which often conceals a simplicity. I stood. You want me back there again? No, Wolfe said. Not yet. We have enough for the moment. He closed his eyes again, and I knew he was building it, piece by piece, not in order of events, but in order of intention. That's how he worked. Not what happened, but why it had to look the way it did. An hour passed. Fritz announced lunch with the gravity of a judge delivering sentence. Wolfe rose, we ate, and for 40 minutes the world ceased to exist beyond the table. That, too, was part of the method. Afterward, Wolfe returned to the office and sat. I took my place. The gloves were still there. Archie, he said, call Mr. Gerin. I did. He answered quickly. Yes? Mr. Wolfe wishes to see you, I said. Now. A hesitation. Is it necessary? It is inevitable, I said. He came. When Gerin entered the office again, he looked more composed than before, at which meant he had spent the intervening hours arranging himself. His hands were bare. You sent for me, he said. Yes, Wolfe said. Sit. Gerin sat. Wolfe regarded him. You purchased gloves this morning. Gerin blinked. Yes. Why? My previous pair was worn. Where are they? I discarded them. When? This morning. Where? In a bin outside my apartment. Wolfe nodded. Archie, make a note to have them recovered. Gerin stiffened. That is unnecessary. Nothing is unnecessary, Wolfe said. Continue. You purchased new gloves and wore them to my house. You removed them in my office and left them there. Why? I told you, Gerin said. I was distracted. No, Wolfe said. You were deliberate. Gerin's jaw tightened. I came to you for help. And you brought me a prop, Wolfe said. Why? Silence. Wolfe's voice was calm. Mr. Gerin, you arranged last night's dinner. You knew Mr. Vale intended to make accusations. You ensured that all interested parties were present. You created a situation in which tension would peak. Then Mr. Vale was murdered in a manner that emphasizes impossibility. You came to me immediately afterward, having first purchased gloves to be seen purchasing them. You're either extraordinarily foolish or moderately intelligent. I incline to the latter. Therefore, your behavior has purpose. Gerin said nothing. Wolfe leaned back. Archie, call Inspector Kramer. I raised a brow. You're moving fast. I am moving at the appropriate speed, Wolfe said. I called. Kramer arrived with less delay than usual, which meant he had been waiting for an excuse. What now? He demanded, entering. Wolfe gestured. Sit down, Inspector. We will have guests. Kramer looked at Gerin, then at me, then at Wolfe. What kind of guests? The necessary kind, Wolfe said. Mr. Gerin, you will summon Mrs. Anselm, Dr. Eber, Mr. Kelm, and Miss Vale. They will come here. Now. Gerin stared. Here. Yes, Wolfe said. If you prefer, we can conduct the discussion at the club, but I assure you I will be less comfortable. Kramer grinned slightly. He likes it when Wolfe starts rearranging people. Gerin hesitated, then nodded. Very well. He went to the phone. I looked at Wolfe. You've got it, I said. I have enough, Wolfe said. The rest will present itself. I leaned back, watching Gerin as he made the calls, his voice steady, his words careful. He was still arranging impressions. The question was whether he knew that the arrangement was about to be dismantled. One by one, they would come into that room, carrying their versions of the truth, and Wolfe would take them apart, not by force, but by removing the necessity for their lies. I glanced at the gloves on the desk. They had done their work. Now it was time for someone to explain why. They arrived in the order of their temperaments, which is to say, not at all by accident. Mrs. Anselm first, because she would not be summoned without asserting that she had chosen to come. Dr. Eber next, carrying his unease like a document he had forgotten to file. Kelm followed, composed and watchful, as if every room were a courtroom and every chair a witness stand. Naomi Vale came last, quiet and rigid, her eyes already fixed on the man who had arranged the gathering. Wolfe did not rise. He did not need to. The room adjusted itself to him. "Sit," he said. They did. Even Kramer, who had taken a position near the bookcase, shifted his weight and folded his arms, settling in for something he suspected he would not enjoy. Wolfe looked at them one by one, not speaking until the silence had stretched far enough to make them aware of it. "Last night," he said at last, "a man was murdered in a room that presented itself as sealed. The door was locked from the inside. The window was secured. A key remained in the inner lock. These facts have been emphasized. Therefore, they are suspect." No one interrupted. Wolfe continued. "Mr. Gerrin arranged the dinner at which Mr. Vale intended to make accusations regarding a bequest. All of you present had interests that could be affected by those accusations. This establishes motive broadly, but not specifically, and we must therefore examine the arrangement." He turned slightly. "Archie, the gloves." I handed them over. Wolfe held them lightly. "Mr. Gerrin purchased these this morning," Wolfe said. "He wore them to my house, removed them, and left them. This is not carelessness. It is communication." Gerrin's voice was controlled. "I have explained—" "You have not," Wolfe said. "You have asserted. That is different." He set the gloves down. "Mr. Gerrin wished me to observe that he had done something unnecessary immediately after the murder," Wolfe said. "He wished me to consider why. This is either an attempt to mislead or an attempt to guide. Since he came to me voluntarily, I conclude the latter. Therefore, Mr. Gerrin, you believe that the obvious explanation would be accepted too quickly, and you wish to provoke skepticism." Gerrin said nothing, as Wolfe nodded slightly. "Very well. Let us consider the obvious explanation. A man is stabbed in a room. The door is locked from the inside. The key remains in place. Therefore, no one could have entered or exited. This is nonsense. It is theatrical nonsense." Kramer shifted. "Get to it, Wolfe." "I'm at it," Wolfe said mildly. "The scratches on the outer keyhole indicate that someone attempted to use a key from the outside and did so clumsily. This suggests either incompetence or simulation. The steward, Mr. Vetch, is not incompetent. Therefore, the scratches are simulated. They are meant to suggest an attempt to enter from outside." Eber spoke, his voice strained. "But why?" "To create complexity," Wolfe said, "to ensure that the lock would dominate the investigation. When a detail is made prominent, it is often to distract from a simpler truth." He leaned forward slightly. "The door was locked from the inside after the murder, but not by the victim, and not by someone inside." Kelm's voice was cool. "That is impossible." "No," Wolfe said. "It is merely inconvenient." He looked at me. "Archie, the key." I stepped to the desk, took a similar key Wolfe had asked me to fetch earlier from a locksmith, and handed it to him. "A key in a mortise lock may be turned from the outside if another key is already inserted within," Wolfe said. "With sufficient pressure and alignment, the inner key can be moved. It is awkward, but not impossible." Kramer's head came up. "You're saying someone locked it from outside?" "Yes," Wolfe said, "and did so deliberately, after placing the inner key to create the appearance of confinement." Naomi Vale spoke, her voice low. "Then someone left the room." "Precisely," Wolfe said. "The locked room is an illusion constructed after the fact." He turned his gaze to the group. Who would benefit from such an illusion? Someone who wished to obscure a direct encounter. Someone who feared that the circumstances of the murder, if plainly seen, would point too clearly to them. His eyes settled on one person. Dr. Eber. Eber stiffened. "That is absurd." "No," Wolfe said. "It is consistent." Eber's fingers began to tap again, faster now. "I had no reason." "You had several," Wolfe said. "Mr. Vale possessed information from the founder's papers that would expose irregularities. Irregularities you were responsible for interpreting, perhaps even concealing. Your professional reputation, and more, were at risk." "That is speculation," Eber said. But Wolfe shook his head. "No, it is deduction. You saw Mr. Vale enter the reading room. You followed him shortly thereafter. You argued. You carried a knife taken earlier from the kitchen, unobserved. You stabbed him, once, efficiently. Then you left the room." Eber's face had gone pale. "There is no proof." "There is necessity," Wolfe said. "You then realized that your presence in the room would be noted. You returned to the door, inserted a key from outside, and turned it against the inner key, locking the door. The scratches you left were inconvenient, so you exaggerated them, creating the appearance of clumsiness. You wished the lock to become the problem." Kramer stepped forward. "That's a stretch." "No," Wolfe said. "It is an economy. Dr. Eber is methodical. He would not risk a struggle. One thrust. No, he would not leave the scene unsecured. He would construct a barrier, and he would overcompensate, ensuring that the barrier became the focus." Eber's hands were trembling now. "This is madness." "Is it?" Wolfe said. "Mr. Kelm, you left immediately after 11 and made a telephone call." "To whom?" Kelm hesitated. "My office." "No," Wolfe said. "To Dr. Eber, to confirm that the matter had been resolved." Kelm's composure cracked for a second. It was enough. Naomi Vale leaned forward. "You killed him," she said to Eber. "I did not," Eber said, but the words had lost weight. Wolfe leaned back. "Inspector, you will find on Dr. Eber's person or among his effects a key compatible with the reading room lock. You will also find that he had access to the kitchen earlier in the evening. His timeline will not sustain scrutiny." Kramer moved, eye fast now. "Eber, don't move." Eber didn't. He didn't have anywhere to go. The room shifted, the illusion collapsing under its own weight. The door that had locked itself was no longer a mystery. It was a tool. Wolfe closed his eyes. "It is always disappointing," he said, "when intelligence is applied to concealment rather than clarity. But it is rarely surprising." Kramer moved in with the efficiency of a man who had been waiting for permission to stop thinking and start acting. He took Eber by the arm, not roughly, but with finality. "You heard him," Kramer said. "You'll come along." Eber didn't resist. That was the last confirmation anyone needed. A man wrongly accused argues, a guilty one calculates, and Eber had reached the point where calculation had nothing left to offer. "This is a mistake," he said, but the words were thin. Sure," Kramer said. "We'll sort it out downtown." He led Eber out. The door closed behind them with a sound that was not dramatic enough for the occasion, which is how truth usually arrives. For a moment, no one spoke. Naomi Vale was the first to move. She stood slowly, her eyes still on the space Eber had occupied. "He knew," she said. "He knew what Benno had found." "Yes," Wolfe said without opening his eyes, "and he knew what it would cost him." She nodded once, sharply, as if confirming something she had suspected but not wanted to name. Then she turned and left the room without another word. Kelm adjusted his cuffs, the gesture precise but unnecessary. "Well," he said, "that is conclusive." "No," I said. "It's sufficient." He looked at me. "You enjoy that distinction?" "It keeps things honest," I said. Mrs. Anselm remained seated. She had not moved during any of it, and now she regarded Wolfe with a calm that had hardened into something less comfortable. "You have resolved the immediate matter," she said. "For that, the club is indebted." Wolfe opened his eyes. "No, madam." "The club is instructed." Her brows lifted slightly. In what way? In the way that institutions often require, Wolfe said. You will review the founder's papers. You will correct any irregularities, and you will do so before someone less patient than Mr. Vale decides to make the matter public again. Kelm smiled faintly. That sounds like advice. It is a statement, Wolfe said. Advice implies choice. Mrs. Anselm held his gaze for a long moment. Then she inclined her head. We will consider it, she said. You will act on it, Wolfe replied. She rose, dignity intact, and moved to the door. Kelm followed her, pausing only to give me a look that suggested he would remember the inconvenience. When they were gone, Gerin remained. He stood near the chair he had occupied, his hands clasped behind his back now, as if he had decided to remove them from consideration entirely. You knew, I said. He looked at me. I suspected. That's a comfortable word, I said. It is accurate, he said. I did not know it was Dr. Eber, but I knew the situation would provoke extreme action. So you set the table, I said. You put everyone in the same room and waited to see who would break. Yes, he said. That's a gamble, I said. Yes. And when it paid off, you came to Wolfe with gloves, I said. He nodded once. I needed him to look beyond the obvious. You could have just said that, I said. No, he said. If I had, you would have distrusted me more. I considered that. He wasn't wrong. Wolfe spoke. Mr. Gerin, you manipulated events to produce a crisis. That is not admirable. But it is efficient. Gerin inclined his head. I did what I believed necessary to protect the club. Wolfe's eyes narrowed slightly. Protection that required a death. Gerin's jaw tightened. I did not intend. Intent is irrelevant, Wolfe said. You created conditions in which violence became probable. That is sufficient. Gerin said nothing. Wolfe leaned back. You will ensure that the matters Mr. Vale intended to expose are addressed. Not concealed. Addressed. If you do not, the next person to examine those papers may not be so obliging as to die conveniently. Gerin's face went pale. I understand. Do you? Wolfe said. Then act accordingly. Gerin nodded again, and more firmly this time. I will. He turned and left. The room settled. I stretched in my chair. Well, I said, that was tidy. Wolfe made a small sound. No, it was merely concluded. Same thing, I said. Not at all, Wolfe said. Tidiness implies satisfaction. This is merely the cessation of a disturbance. I looked at the gloves on the desk. What about those? Wolfe glanced at them. They served their purpose. Mr. Gerin wished to ensure that I would not accept the obvious explanation. He succeeded. By being obvious in a different direction, I said. Precisely, Wolfe said. A man who advertises his carelessness invites inspection. That is sometimes useful. I stood and went to the window, opening it a fraction. The city was still there, doing its usual work of pretending nothing had happened. Eber thought the lock would protect him, I said. He thought the lock would distract, Wolfe corrected. Protection was incidental. And Gerin thought Wolfe would see through it, I said. He hoped I would, Wolfe said. Hope is not a method, but it occasionally suffices. I turned back. And if you hadn't? Wolfe's eyes closed again. Then Inspector Kramer would have arrested Dr. Eber eventually, after a period of noise and inconvenience. The truth is patient, Archie. It does not require elegance. Good thing, I said. We provide that. Wolfe ignored me. Fritz appeared in the doorway. Dinner will be served in 20 minutes. Excellent, Wolfe said. Fritz withdrew. I looked at Wolfe. You ever get tired of it? I asked. Of what? People arranging things, I said. Trying to control how they're seen. Wolfe opened his eyes. No. It is the only consistent feature of human behavior. Appetite may vary. Vanity does not. I grinned. That's a cheerful thought. It is accurate, Wolfe said. Which is better? I picked up the gloves, turned them over once, then set them back down. They almost got away with it, I said. Wolfe shook his head. No, Archie, they never do. They merely delay the moment at which they are understood. I nodded. And then? Then, Wolfe said, they discover that understanding is the most unforgiving form of justice. Fritz called from the dining room. I moved toward the door. Coming, I said. Behind me, Wolfe rose, and the brownstone returned to its proper order, as if the disturbance had been noted, examined, and filed away. Which, for Nero Wolfe, is as close to peace as the world ever gets. Dinner was precisely what it ought to be, which is to say, it required no commentary from anyone but Fritz, and he supplied it in sauces. Wolfe attended to it with a full concentration he denied almost everything else, and for a while the Vestal Club, its locked door, and its cultivated disasters receded into the background where most human complications eventually belong. It wasn't until the cheese had been treated with proper respect and the beer had been given its due that Wolfe leaned back and permitted the world to re-enter. Archie, he said, the gloves. I reached for them where they still rested on the side table and handed them over. Wolfe held them again, turning them slightly, his fingers precise but not fussy. He did not look at me when he spoke. Mr. Gerin will act, he said. He must. Because you told him to, I said. No, Wolfe said. Because he has now been observed. I took a swallow of beer. You think that matters more? It is all that matters, Wolfe said. A man may endure guilt. He may even endure exposure, but he doesn't endure sustained observation without adjustment. You're saying he'll fix things because someone is watching, I said. I'm saying he will fix what he believes we can see, Wolfe said, and that may be sufficient. I considered that. And if it isn't? Then the matter will recur, Wolfe said. Human folly is renewable. Fritz removed the last of the dishes with a look that suggested he approved of the conclusion, if not the subject. When he had gone, I leaned back and stretched. You know, I said, for a locked-room murder, that one didn't put up much of a fight. Wolfe's eyes moved to me. It did not require one. Because it wasn't really a locked room, I said. Because the lock was not the problem, Wolfe corrected. It was the presentation. I nodded. Eber thought he could hide behind it. He thought he could redirect attention, Wolfe said. Which is a subtler error. Hiding invites search. Redirecting invites acceptance. And Gerin didn't accept it, I said. No, Wolfe said. He distrusted neatness. Which is why he came to you, I said. Yes, I grinned. Good instinct. Occasionally, Wolfe said dryly. I stood and carried my glass back to the office. Wolfe followed at his own pace, which is to say he arrived exactly when he intended to. The room was as we had left it, which is always a comfort. Cases come and go. The furniture remains loyal. I took my seat. Wolfe settled into his chair, and the universe adjusting accordingly. Archie, he said, what remains? Kramer will build his case, I said. Eber will either confess or try to complicate things. Gerin will clean up the bequest problem. The club will pretend nothing happened. Yes, Wolfe said. And you? I'll file it, I said, with a note that the door lied. Wolfe's lips moved slightly. Doors do not lie. They're instructed. By people, I said. Always, Wolfe said. The phone rang. I picked it up. Goodwin. Saul, came the voice. Just tying it up. Kelm's call last night. Went to Eber's number. Timing fits. Of course it does, I said. Anything else? Eber's got a duplicate key, Saul said. Old copy. Not official. Probably made years ago. That explains the confidence, I said. Yeah, Saul said. And the scratches? Decoration, I said. Thought so? Saul said. You done with me? For now, I said. Thanks. I hung up and relayed it. Wolfe nodded. The pattern is complete. Nice when that happens, I said. It is inevitable when the elements are sufficiently constrained, Wolfe said. I leaned back. You ever think about how much work people put into being misunderstood? Yes, Wolfe said. It is one of their principal occupations. And you keep interfering, I said. I do not interfere, Wolfe said. I observe and conclude. Right, I said. And occasionally rearrange. Wolfe ignored that. There was a moment of quiet. Not empty. Wolfe never allowed empty, but settled. The kind of quiet that comes after something has been resolved and before the next thing decides to intrude. I looked at the gloves one last time. They started it, I said. No, Wolfe said. They revealed it. Same difference, I said. No, Wolfe said. The difference is essential. The cause and the indication must not be confused. Mr. Gerin did not create the murder. He created the conditions under which its meaning could not be ignored. I considered that. You're saying he forced clarity. I'm saying he gambled on it, Wolfe said, and was fortunate in his choice of observer. I grinned. Modest. Accurate, Wolfe said. I stood, stretching again. Well, the brownstone survived another disturbance. Yes, Wolfe said. Barely. You didn't even have to leave your chair, I said. I rarely do, Wolfe said. It encourages inefficiency. I moved toward the door, then paused. One thing, I said. If Gerin hadn't bought those gloves, if he'd just come in and told you straight, would it have taken longer? Wolfe considered that for a moment. Yes, he said. Why? Because, Wolfe said, without the gloves, I might have believed him. I laughed. That would have been tragic. It would have been inconvenient, Wolfe said. Which is worse. I nodded. Good thing he tried to be clever. Wolfe's eyes closed. Archie, he said, there is a difference between cleverness and intelligence. Cleverness seeks to impress. Intelligence seeks to understand. And tonight, I said. Tonight, Wolfe said, we were spared cleverness. I opened the door. Until tomorrow, I said. Pui, Wolfe murmured. Behind me, the brownstone settled again into its proper shape. The disturbance filed away among the many that had come before it, and each one a small testament to the same persistent truth, that men will always arrange their doors to lock behind them, and that sooner or later someone will notice how they did it. Morning came the way it usually does in our line of work, quietly, as if it had nothing to do with what had happened the night before. The brownstone had returned to its natural condition, which meant Wolfe was upstairs with the orchids, Fritz was conducting something delicate with eggs, and I was at my desk wondering how long it would take before the world decided to become unreasonable again. It didn't take long. At 9:37, the bell rang. I went to answer it with a neutral expression and opened the door to find Lyle Gerin standing there, gloved again, but not in the same way. These gloves were older, worn in the leather softened by use instead of announcing itself. That's better, I said. He looked at his hands, then at me. Good morning, Mr. Goodwin. Morning, I said. Come in. Wolfe will want to see you. He enjoys continuity. Gerin stepped inside, and I led him to the office. Wolfe was already seated, which meant he had returned from the plant rooms early or had shortened his visit, which in itself was a comment. Mr. Gerin, Wolfe said. Sit. Gerin sat. For a moment, Wolfe said nothing. He simply regarded him, and Gerin did something I hadn't seen him do before. He waited without trying to arrange himself. That is an improvement, Wolfe said. Gerin's lips twitched just slightly. I thought you might approve. I rarely approve, Wolfe said, but I occasionally acknowledge. Jaren nodded. I have come to inform you that the board met this morning. And, Wolfe said, we have begun a full review of the founder's papers, Jaren said. Dr. Eber's interpretations are being examined. Legal counsel has been retained to address the discrepancies. Mr. Kellum? Wolfe asked. Jaren inclined his head. Among others. And Mrs. Anselm, Wolfe said. She has agreed, Jaren said. Reluctantly, but decisively. Reluctance is acceptable, Wolfe said. Delay is not. There will be no delay, Jaren said. Wolfe studied him. You have learned something. Yes, Jaren said simply. What? Wolfe asked. That control is not the same as clarity, Jaren said, and that arranging appearances does not guarantee outcomes. Wolfe's eyes narrowed slightly, not in disapproval, but in recognition. Adequate, he said. I leaned back in my chair. And the club? I said. Still pretending nothing happened? Jaren allowed himself a small breath. The club will survive, he said. It always does. But it will not be quite the same. Nothing ever is, I said. He looked at me. No. There was a pause, and then Jaren reached into his coat and placed something on Wolfe's desk. Not an envelope this time, but a small folded document. Wolfe did not touch it. What is that? A copy of the relevant portion of the founder's original bequest, Jaren said. The unaltered version. Wolfe glanced at me. I picked it up, opened it, and scanned it. It didn't take long to see what had been at stake. The language was clear, direct, and inconvenient to anyone who had benefited from its later interpretation. Benno Vale was right, I said. Yes, Jaren said. And now? I asked. Now, Jaren said. As we correct it. Wolfe nodded once. Then Mr. Vale's death, while regrettable, will not have been entirely without consequence. Jaren's expression tightened. That is not a comfort. No, Wolfe said. It is not intended to be. Jaren stood. I wanted you to know. I know, Wolfe said. That is sufficient. Jaren hesitated, then said, And the gloves? Wolfe's eyes moved to his hands. You have improved. Jaren almost smiled. Good day, Mr. Wolfe. Mr. Goodwin. He left. I watched the door close, then turned back. You think he'll keep it up? I asked. For a time, Wolfe said. And after that? Wolfe leaned back, closing his eyes. After that, he will forget. Or he will decide that he has done enough. Or he will discover that the cost of clarity is higher than he prefers to pay. Cheerful, I said. Accurate, Wolfe said, though I looked at the document still in my hand. Vale pushed too hard, I said. Vale pushed it all, Wolfe said. That is sufficient. And Eber couldn't afford that, I said. No, Wolfe said. He had arranged his world too carefully to permit disruption. And Jaren arranged a bigger disruption, I said. Yes, Wolfe said, and survived it. I set the paper down. You ever think about how close that came to going the other way? No, Wolfe said. Why not? Because it did not, Wolfe said. Speculation about alternate failures is a waste of time. Good philosophy, I said. It is practical, Wolfe said. Fritz appeared in the doorway. Breakfast, he announced. Wolfe opened his eyes. Excellent. He rose, and I followed. As we moved toward the dining room, I glanced back once at the office. The gloves were gone. Wolfe, I said. Oh, yes. The gloves. I disposed of them, he said. Why? I asked. They had completed their function, Wolfe said. There's no reason to retain a tool once its purpose is fulfilled. I grinned. Sentimental value. Pfui, Wolfe said. We sat at the table. Fritz served, Wolfe approved, and the world resumed its proper order. As I poured the coffee, I thought about doors. Not the kind with hinges and locks, but the kind people build around themselves. The kind they close carefully, thinking they've secured something important. The kind they forget can be opened from the other side. "Archie," Wolfe said. "Yeah?" "You are thinking in metaphors," he said. "Dangerous habit," I said. "Wasteful," Wolfe corrected. I shrugged. "It passes the time." Wolfe lifted his cup. "Time does not require assistance in passing. Neither do murders," I said. "No," Wolfe said, "but understanding them does." I took a sip of coffee and nodded. Somewhere in the city, another door would close. Somewhere, someone would arrange things just so, convinced that the arrangement would hold, and sooner or later, someone would notice the scratches,